Well, hello and welcome to the Bumper to Bumper podcast. I am Dave Riccio here along with John Riggle, and together we are helping you with your car. We have a show every week, and if there's something you want us to talk about, we won't know about it unless you comment. Be sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate that. It makes us feel good. I like to feel good. I think I'm just like about everybody. Make me feel nice. So anyway, John, I was thinking a lot about pattern failures and what is a pattern failure, and do consumers recognize when it's a pattern failure versus something just broke on my car?
Okay.
And what's a pattern failure?
Well, call them pattern failures. Let's say it's a known type of failure. Just for example, the Ford 6R80s and the molded lead frames. We get speed sensor codes out of those. Man, when I see speed sensor codes in those particular ones for certain year ranges, I know that's going to be a lead frame. It's just kind of a gut instinct. I may take the car out and try to duplicate it and stuff, but we know that those can be really difficult to duplicate. It could take hundreds of miles, and before we could get it to duplicate again. But
I would venture to say we've done that repair 50 times.
Oh, yeah, easy. Yeah.
And when I do that repair, because it's a pattern repair, and I call the customer and I say, hey, here's the deal. Your car's not acting up.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number one of diagnostic is verify the customer's concern.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, in this case, the diagnosis is going to be worse than the cure.
Yeah.
Because it may take us a lot of time to try and catch this thing in the act.
Yeah.
But we know, based off this code and the model of transmission and the fact that it is a pattern failure, that there's a 99% chance it's this molded lead frame that is bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So your choice, we can have your car fixed tomorrow and you can drive out of here, or you can leave it down here with me for a month while I try and duplicate this symptom that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's a great example of a pattern failure. Now, that one is pretty precise because when I say we've done 50 of them, 50 times out of 50 times, I'm right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's not very, and then there's other things where they are a bit more of an educated guess. And I think consumers get in trouble because they think of pattern failures. I'll give you the example of the CVT transmission in the Nissan.
Yeah.
So the guy calls his mechanic buddy, and he goes, yeah, my Nissan Sentra, it doesn't seem to want to shift. And his mechanic buddy goes, how many miles on it? He goes, 120,000.
Yeah.
120,000, one of those CVTs? You got lucky, man. Need another transmission.
Yeah.
Right? No one's looked at it.
Yeah.
So that's some bad advice that comes from pattern failures.
Because you have to verify it. That's kind of the thing. Okay, so we just said we don't verify it with the lead frames.
In that case,
that's a monetary decision, and it makes some sense. Now with the CVTs, we have to be careful with that because it's easy to pull the trigger on them. They die. They're a pattern failure. The sheave and pulley wear that we see on the Nissan is just. It's real predictable. However, if we're doing this based on symptom alone, I find intake air boots that are torn that mimic the symptom that we have that would make us say that the transmission was bad. So we have to do our due diligence, and we have to be aware that, if we're going after these pattern failures, what is our likelihood of success, and what is the likelihood that nothing else can cause this?
Right.
So we got to kind of narrow that down.
So as a consumer, we want you to understand what a pattern failure is.
Yeah.
And then you can, when you can go wrong with a pattern failure, because people do talk themselves into having a problem they don't even have.
Right.
We had a Ford F-150 here the other day. Kid just bought the truck.
Yeah.
He's had it for 1 week. And he's like, I just bought this truck. I'm like, well, how much? He's like, $25,000. I'm like, that's a lot of money,
Yeah.
Now he's at a transmission shop.
Yeah.
Well, he went ahead and went online, and he's like, oh, these Ford 10 speeds are atrocious. Oh, my God.
And he even took it to another trans shop.
Took it to another trans shop, and what that transmission shop did is they copied everything out of the bulletin from Ford and just verbatim put it on his invoice, and they told him it's going to be a minimal of $2,500 and then $1,000 per gear.
That was great.
Which I thought that was some bold, weird stuff.
That was funny.
So anyway, so he's already coming in the door. He thinks he's got to spend $10,000 or something on a transmission.
Yeah.
And the reality was he didn't.
Yeah.
What do we do to fix that thing?
Reset the adapts in it.
Reset the shift adapts.
Yeah.
So you can go wrong with pattern failures, and I do see that. People are like, this guy, I mean, he walked in the door, he's like, handed me the keys reluctantly because he thought it was going to be expensive.
Yeah. Well, it's a 10R80, and they do have a pattern failure with that CDF drum. The drums didn't have a ridge cut into them to retain the
bushing.
one of the bushing in there. That bushing slides out of place, and that didn't get updated till 22, where they put a ridge in there, an actual retainer to stop that bushing from moving around. So, it's a good guess. It's a good guess, but it's not always what it is.
Well, here's the thing I found about those 10R80s. Speaking of which, I don't think we've ever seen one of them burned up.
No, they all do. Yeah,
all CDF drum.
Yeah, they all lose pressure, and they already start shifting so bad. Everybody's like, I got to get this fixed.
But because it's a pattern failure, people always throw a transmission at it. I say always. It happens a lot of times. But it's like replacing an engine when you needed a spark plug.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a big deal to change the CDF drum, but it's 1/3 the price of replacing the transmission. But beyond that CDF drum, I think it's a relatively great transmission.
Yeah.
And some, shift adaptation issues, but they're good. So, but that's a pattern failure. And, I do want to mention, because there's technicians that really are problem solvers, and they really understand the systems. They want to know how they work. Sometimes there's technicians that have to rely on what I call a cheater site.
Yeah.
And a cheater site's pretty good at the pattern failures.
Yeah.
So what a cheater site is, and it's a problem database.
Yeah, you're talking like Identifix, International Automotive Technicians Network, Diagnostic Network. There's a whole bunch of them that professional technicians will quite often use. Yeah.
It is a point of reference, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But you can go in and you can say, I've got I'll use the Ford F-150.
Yeah.
Ford F-150, you punch in the VIN number, and transmission shifting issues.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to
1-2 shift, 3-5 shifts, 6-7 shift.
It's going to come up with 1,000 cases that are confirmed fixes where replacing the transmission was the fix.
Right.
But if you're not a transmission shop, you're not fixing the CDF drum. You're just replacing the transmission.
Right.
But but when there's a pattern of failure, as a quick reference, technicians can look at that stuff. But some people do not have diagnosing skills.
Yeah.
All they can do is go to the cheater site. It's an information, but I do call them cheater sites.
When you look at Identifix, though, and I see it, the cream floats to the top. Generally, that's when you've got 900, the same failure, and there's 3 other ones. Well, 2 of those guys may have been right on the other ones. One of those guys had no business. He ought to be flipping burgers somewhere,
right?
Because his solution couldn't ever fixed it. But you see that, and you got to go, okay, this is good, but they always have tests that they have you do before you make that call, and that's the part everybody wants to skip.
Due diligence. And you know what? A lot of technicians are on flat rates, so they don't necessarily get, the quicker they get it done, the less time,
Oh, yeah.
they can do more jobs. So the due diligence is the first thing to go out the window, and it's a roll of a dice, and we've got some pretty good odds.
Yeah.
That may be what it is, but I think people get into trouble with the cheater sites because they don't take those steps. It's like in the transmission business, right? First thing on every troubleshooting guide is check the fluid level.
Yeah.
How many transmissions do you get from other shops where the fluid level's low?
Lots.
And they go, well, it's in leaks, so they don't bother checking the fluid level, but the radiator was replaced last summer. And they didn't replace the 2 quarts that were in the radiator, and so there's reasons transmissions get low. But those are the kind of things that due diligence. So you want to find technicians that take the time, and I would say this is where customers can be their own worst enemy because they're pushing for that quick response, and they've been doing it to us for 30 years now.
Yeah.
How soon can I get back in my car? And we understand pressure.
Yeah.
It's your livelihood to get to work.
Yeah.
Got to have your car. So we understand the pressure, but if a technician's not disciplined and he lets the customer push the process, that's where the mistake's happen.
It could cost you a lot more money than it needs to.
Yeah. Take your time, diagnose the car, and let's fix what we really need to fix.
Yep.
And we don't want to replace an engine when all we needed was a spark plug. Anyway, pattern failures. Thanks for joining us to get us to talk about a topic that you want to hear about. Be sure to comment. We take a look at those. We don't always get to all the comments, but at least we peruse them to see what's there. And then something super technical or problem issue, and you want us to dive into it, we'll see if we can figure it out.
Here you go.
Anyway, thanks for joining us on the Bumper to Bumper podcast. Well, hello, I'm Dave Riccio, your host of the Bumper to Bumper podcast, and I would like to thank you for tuning in. If you want one of your car questions to be answered on our podcast, tap the link in the description for a chance to have your question featured. And while you are there, we would love for you to like and subscribe to see more Bumper to Bumper podcasts in the future.